What would happen if a person lived underground for months, with no sunlight, no clock, no calendar, and no way of knowing whether it was day or night? In 1962, a young French scientist named Michel Siffre decided to find out in the most extreme way possible. He did not want to run an experiment in a laboratory. He wanted to throw himself into total isolation and observe what happened to the human mind when every reference to time disappeared. Michel Siffre was a geologist, speleologist, and cave explorer. He studied glaciers in the French Alps and believed that if he wanted to understand how human beings truly perceive time, he needed to remove everything that normally structures life: clocks, routines, sunlight, and constant contact with other people. His first major experiment began inside a glacier cave in the French Alps near the Scarasson Massif. The cave was located beneath a glacier in an environment that was freezing, wet, and completely silent. The temperature was close to freezing. Water constantly dripped from the walls. The ground was covered in mud, and there was total darkness. Michel brought food, water, notebooks, medical supplies, camping equipment, and a field telephone connected to a team on the surface. But there was one essential rule. Nobody was allowed to tell him what time it was, how many days had passed, or whether it was morning, afternoon, or night. Down there, time simply stopped existing.
During the first days, Michel tried to create his own routine. He slept when he felt tired, ate when he felt hungry, and worked when he had energy. At first, it seemed manageable, but after some time, his brain slowly lost the ability to measure the passage of hours. He began to believe that minutes lasted much longer than they really did. In some tests, researchers asked him to count 120 seconds in his head. Michel would often take almost 5 real minutes before he believed 2 minutes had passed. His body also began to behave in strange ways. Instead of following a cycle close to 24 hours, he started staying awake for more than 30 hours at a time, and then sleeping for 15 or even 20 hours. Without sunlight, the brain lost its main biological signal for regulating circadian rhythms. Today, scientists know that the human body depends heavily on the cycle of light and darkness to regulate hormones, body temperature, hunger, sleep, and time perception. But in 1962, very little of that was fully understood. Michel Siffre was essentially turning himself into a human test subject to discover what happens when the brain is removed from the normal world. On the surface, researchers monitored his phone calls, physical condition, and daily reports. But as the days passed, they noticed something disturbing. Michel was becoming slower, more confused, and emotionally unstable. Simple mental tasks became difficult. He forgot thoughts in the middle of sentences. He struggled to estimate short periods of time.
Sometimes he felt like he had just woken up, when in reality he had already been awake for many hours. The cave itself seemed to swallow everything. There was no wind, no sky, no sunrise. Only wet rock walls, freezing water, mud, and a darkness so complete that the brain slowly began to lose its relationship with reality. When Michel finally emerged from the cave, he believed it was still much earlier in the calendar than it actually was. He thought only about a month had passed. In reality, he had been underground for more than 2 months. The shock was so intense that he described it as feeling like he had traveled through time without realizing it. The experiment turned Michel Siffre into one of the most important figures in the study of biological rhythms. Years later, during the 1970s, he organized new underground isolation experiments in caves in Texas involving other volunteers. The results became even stranger. Some participants ended up living on completely different schedules from the normal 24-hour cycle. Some shifted to 36-hour days. Others drifted close to 48-hour cycles. Some believed they had only slept for a few hours when they had actually slept for more than an entire day. In many cases, time perception slowed down so dramatically that a short conversation could feel like it lasted for hours. A single minute could feel like 5. An hour could feel like an entire day. The isolation also caused severe psychological effects. Some participants experienced memory problems, emotional instability, difficulty organizing thoughts, and episodes close to hallucinations. Without other people, without windows, without schedules, and without the normal repetition of daily life, the brain slowly began to detach itself from shared reality. That is why these experiments still fascinate scientists today. They revealed that human beings do not experience time naturally. We depend on sunlight, routines, clocks, meals, voices, and other people to constantly remind us that time is passing. Without those signals, the mind begins to create its own version of reality. And maybe the most disturbing part of this story is realizing that if you were placed alone inside a cold, wet, and silent cave for long enough, you might also begin to believe that the outside world had simply stopped existing.